The iPad screen glowed with before and after photos that made my grandmother's 1890s cabin look like a glossy magazine spread. Steel appliances where her wood stove had been, marble countertops instead of worn butcher block. Surprise! We modernized your old cabin. My father-in-law beamed, swiping through images of granite, glass, and gleaming chrome with the pride of a destroyer who called himself a creator. I set down my coffee cup on their pristine kitchen island, calculating exactly how much legal trouble the Hartwell family had just bought themselves, and checked my watch with theatrical precision. Hope the Historical Society likes it. They've owned it for 6 months. You just renovated a museum property. Did they really think they could walk into my life, my history, my grandmother's sacred space, and improve it without asking? Without even wondering why I hadn't mentioned the cabin in months? The kitchen went silent except for the hum of their professional-grade espresso machine. Gerald's finger froze mid-swipe on the iPad. My mother-in-law Diane's smile faltered like a bad Botox job, her pearl necklace catching the light as she swayed slightly. Behind them, my husband Mark set down his scotch with a careful clink that told me he'd known about this surprise all along. What do you mean, the Historical Society? Diane's voice climbed to that pitch she reserved for uncooperative restaurant staff. I mean, I donated the cabin to the Pine Ridge Historical Society in January, I said, pulling out my phone. They were thrilled to acquire an intact example of 1890s frontier architecture, especially one with all the original fixtures you just ripped out. Gerald's face flushed red, then purple, cycling through colors like a broken television. That's impossible. We've been working on it for 3 months. Without ever asking me about it, I noted. Without wondering why I hadn't visited. Without checking who actually owned the property. Mark finally spoke, his voice carefully modulated, his courtroom voice. Darling, there must be some misunderstanding. Mom and Dad said you'd been wanting to update the cabin for years. When? I asked, genuinely curious. When did I ever say I wanted to destroy a piece of my family history and replace it with something that looks like every house in your parents' subdivision? The iPad clattered onto the marble counter as Gerald stood, his golf shirt stretching across his belly. We spent $80,000 on those renovations. $80,000 violating the Historical Preservation Act, I corrected. The cabin is a registered landmark. Every change requires approval from the Preservation Board. How many approvals did you get? The look they exchanged told me everything. They'd waltzed onto that property like they owned it, hired contractors, torn out windows and walls, all without a single permit or permission. You'll have to undo this, Diane said, as if she could command reality to reshape itself. Call the Historical Society and explain there's been a mistake. The only mistake was assuming you had any right to touch my grandmother's cabin, I said. Or rather, the Historical Society's cabin. I'm sure they'll be very interested in hearing about unauthorized renovations to their property. Mark moved toward me, his hands spread in that placating gesture I'd grown to hate over 7 years of marriage. Let's not overreact. We can work this out as a family. Like we worked out your mother redecorating our bedroom while we were on vacation? Or your father building that deck on our property without asking? Or the time they threw out my grandmother's quilt because it didn't match their aesthetic? That's different, Mark protested. They were trying to help. They were trying to control, I shot back. And you've enabled them every single time. My phone buzzed. A text from my friend at the Historical Society. Security footage shows major construction at Evergreen Cabin. Please advise ASAP. Security footage, I said aloud, watching their faces change. Did you know the Historical Society installed cameras after someone tried to steal the heritage plaques last year? They have 3 months of your illegal renovation on tape. Diane sank into one of her designer bar stools. We were improving it. That place was falling apart. That place, I said slowly, was where my grandmother raised 6 children after my grandfather died in the mines. Where she ran a boarding house to keep them fed. Where she planted the apple orchard with her bare hands. Every improvement you made erased a piece of that history. It's just a building, Gerald muttered. And the Mona Lisa is just a painting. Value isn't always about market price, Gerald. Though speaking of price, I wonder what the fines are for unauthorized renovation of a historical landmark. I pulled up the Historical Society's website, finding the page I wanted. Here we go. Unauthorized alterations to registered historical properties may result in fines up to $500 per day, plus full restoration costs. That's, let me see, 90 days at $500. $45,000 in fines alone. plus whatever it costs to restore everything you destroyed. Destroyed? Mark's voice cracked. Mom and Dad modernized it. They destroyed the original windows my great-grandfather made by hand. They tore out the stone fireplace my grandmother built. They replaced the pine floors where my mother took her first steps. They modernized away everything that mattered. I swiped through the photos on Gerald's abandoned iPad, each image another wound. The kitchen where I'd learned to make pie crust, now unrecognizable. The bedroom where I'd spent summers reading Nancy Drew mysteries, transformed into something from a furniture catalog. The porch where Grandma had told me stories about frontier life, enclosed and climate-controlled. "We'll pay the fines," Gerald said gruffly. "Make this go away." "It's not about money," I said. "It never was. It was about respect, about boundaries, about understanding that not everything in my life is yours to improve." "You're being dramatic," Diane sniffed. "We've only ever wanted what's best for you and Mark." "No," I said, standing. "You've wanted control. You've wanted to remake everything in your image. My clothes, my house, my career choices, and now my family heritage. But you can't renovate away who I am or where I came from." Mark reached for my hand. "Sweetheart, please." They meant well. I pulled away. The road to legal troubles is paved with good intentions. Your parents are about to learn that the hard way. "You wouldn't," Diane gasped. "We're family. Family doesn't destroy things that matter to each other," I said. Family asks. Family respects. Family understands that some things are sacred even if they're old and worn. I gathered my purse, done with this conversation. At the door, I turned back to see them huddled together like conspirators caught in the act, which, legally speaking, they were. "The Historical Society's lawyer will be in touch," I said. "I'd suggest you find a good attorney, and a contractor who specializes in historical restoration. You'll need both. This will ruin us," Gerald shouted. "No," I corrected. "Your arrogance ruined you. I'm just the messenger delivering the bill." I left them in their perfect kitchen with their perfect appliances and their perfectly horrible realization that money couldn't fix this. As I drove away, I thought about Grandma's cabin, wounded but not lost. The Historical Society would ensure it was restored properly, every board and beam returned to its original state. It would cost the Hartwells more than money, though. It would cost them the illusion that they could reshape the world to suit their tastes without consequences. My phone rang. "Mark, how could you do this to us?" he demanded. "I didn't do anything," I replied. "I donated property that belonged to me to an organization that would preserve it. Your parents are the ones who committed vandalism." "Vandalism?" "They improved it. They improved it without ownership, without permission, without permits. That's the definition of vandalism, counselor. You should know that." "Where are you going?" His voice turned pleading. "Come back. We can talk about this." "I'm going to the Historical Society," I said, "to review the security footage and assess the damage. Then I'm going to the cabin to document everything they destroyed. After that, I'm going to a lawyer, not you, to discuss my options." "Your options? What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm tired of being married to someone who thinks his parents' wants matter more than my needs, who stands by while they erase everything that makes me who I am, who calls it help when they destroy the last place on earth that still felt like home." The silence stretched between us, filled with 7 years of accumulated compromises, all of them mine. "They love you," he finally said. "They love the idea of me they've been trying to create," I corrected. "The problem is, I'm not a cabin they can gut and renovate. I'm a person with a history they keep trying to demolish." I hung up and drove toward Pine Ridge, where the Historical Society waited with security footage and damage assessments. Behind me, the Hartwells were probably calling their lawyer, their contractor, their insurance company, anyone who might save them from the consequences of their actions. But some things couldn't be fixed with money or connections. Some violations went deeper than property law. They'd torn out the heart of my history and replaced it with their vision of improvement. Now they'd learn what it cost to mistake control for love, to confuse destruction with help. The cabin could be restored. Every board, every stone, every hand-carved detail could be returned to its original state. The question was whether my marriage could survive the renovation. As I pulled into the Historical Society's parking lot, I realized I didn't much care about the answer anymore. Some things were worth preserving. Others had already been gutted beyond repair. Time to sort out which was which.